Yo, 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 what's going on, faithful? It's your boy Mike from the Nothing But Niners crew. And we are here with another position breakdown. Tonight, we're doubling up because we have two very small position groups. But before we get to the details of what tonight's show is about, we have to go through the formalities. I want to thank you guys truly for stopping in here on the YouTube channel and checking us out. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button if this is your first time seeing us. We appreciate you stopping by. You're also going to want to hit the notification, a little tiny bell. What that does is it lets you know exactly when we go live so you don't miss anything. All right. We also want you to stop by the website. That is www.nothingbutniners.com. There you're going to see a bunch of good articles written by a bunch of great people, and it's all for free, unlike some other 49ers websites. All right, guys, so make sure you check us out there. It's going to show you our social media handles. We have Snapchat and Twitter. Both of those handles are Nothing But Nine ERS, Nothing But Niners. All right. Also, you can see our Instagram as well as our Facebook pages, and those are Nothing But Niners. Tonight, I'm with my man Nick. He is 49er Faithful 365. My Twitter handle is 49ers Mike _NF. And our guy Anthony's supposed to be popping in here too at some point. You guys will see him probably when we get into the tight ends talk. All right. So, Nick, how you doing over there, man? What's going on, baby?
Mike. I'm chilling, baby. I'm chilling. Yeah, I'm just chilling. I'm excited to do this positional breakdown. I mean, I know it's not very many people in quarterbacks and tight ends, but it's something that's important to this team. We've all seen how much George Kittle was used last year. We know how the fact of Jimmy Garoppolo going down hurt us, and I'm kind of interested to see what happens there. But other than that, man, just chilling.
All right. Now, guys, if you watch any of the weekly shows that we do, or the weekly shows that we do, you guys will know that we always jump into the topics after we discuss some of the newer things that have happened. So today, the 49ers made a couple of moves. They officially inked Jimmy Ward. They hired someone else to the strength and conditioning staff, and they also signed the punter. So, Nick, I know you did a couple of articles on that all. Why don't you give us a breakdown or give us a quick run through on all that and let the people know who may have missed it. Some of the people who aren't on Twitter don't know exactly what happened with the 49ers today. So share some of that good news with us, bro.
Yeah, so we signed a head athletic trainer. Well, I guess assigned a head athletic trainer. He went to college at South Dakota and South Dakota State, where he earned a bachelor's degree in Doctor of Physical Therapy. Excuse me. Along with a couple other things. Somebody said smile, Mike. Which looks like he's 20. I think I have to figure out what his age is, but he came from Denver Broncos. He did internship there his first year in 2013. Then he bounced back and forth between the physical therapist, the assistant athletic trainer, to finally taking over in 2017 or 2018 as a head athletic trainer. He did not finish doing the physical therapist part of it. At one point, he held all three. I have to figure out his age again because I don't quite remember off the top of my head what it was. Yeah, it's kind of exciting to see that this whole thing has been brought back. That is completely done with now, meaning there's no other positions we need to fill with that. We've been wondering who it was going to be. So he served 5 years with Denver Broncos. Like I said, intern 2013 for the team's medical department. He was the assistant athletic trainer and physical therapist in 14 and 15. In 16 and 17, he was the director of rehabilitation, athletic trainer, and the department or doctor of physical therapy. 2018, he stayed in the position of director of rehabilitation and athletic trainer. Like I said, he got his bachelor's degree from the University of South Dakota, his master's degree from South Dakota State, and then he went back to South Dakota State and got his doctor of physical therapy. I'm not sure on his age. I can look it up, but I'm not sure how old he is. He looks pretty young, though.
Yeah, I mean, his age isn't going to be too important. I mean, the point is that we fill the full strength and conditioning staff. They're all here. They're all taken care of. And I know that people were worried about who was going to be the head guy and all that stuff. And what was it, the head athletic trainer or something like the whole staff is taken taking its assignments now, and we have a name with the titles, and we have someone to blame now if something happens that we don't like, especially if we can associate it with whatever position it is. Okay. We also picked up a punter. All right, and this guy came from Green Bay, right?
Yeah, Justin Vogel. So the Niners have signed him to a 1-year deal. He's a 6'5", 220 pounds, 25 years old. He was born in Tampa, Florida. He went to college in Miami. He's only got 1 season under his belt, and Matt Maiocco reported that he had a great rookie season in 2017 with the Packers. He had 44.4 gross yards and a 41.6 net average, but he was replaced last year in place of a rookie and didn't catch on anywhere else. So Matt Maiocco put out a tweet earlier asking Tom Silverstein if this punter also does kickoffs. And Tom Silverstein, the beat writer for the Green Bay Packers, says, as I recall, they used him in training camp some, but Crosby did the kickoffs. He punted much better in warm weather. I thought he'd be in Green Bay for a while, but they fell in love with their draft pick, J.K. Scott. But like I said, his career averages, he's played in 16 games. He had 71 punts for 3,155 yards. 2,951 of those were net yards. 62 was his longest. Averaged 44.4 yards with a net average of 41.6. He kicked 8 out of bounds. He had 19 in the 20, 2 touchbacks, and returns were 29 for 164 yards. So he's a pretty average punter. Nothing to be really thrilled about or anything like that. But I'm sure that the Niners, like I said in my article on nothingbutniners.com, I'm sure the Niners are going to bring another foot in just to give competition. And then they'll battle it out to see who the starting punter will be.
Yeah, you never really realize how tall these punters are, man. This guy
He's
is
the tallest on the
6'5".
team.
Huh?
He's the tallest on the team.
Yeah, this dude, he's freaking 6'5" and like 220. Bradley Penny was 6'6" and 225. Like these guys are all punters big? Like you wouldn't think that they had to be that big, but it is what it is. It's cool that we have another guy here, and we got to show some love to the punters, guys. Punters are people too. And then the last but not least is Jimmy Ward. He officially inked. We knew he was coming back, but he signed today. So that was just officially announced. That's all. Nothing that we haven't discussed already. I don't think we need to waste any time.
Yeah, that was the same with Mostert. I think his was officially announced today too.
Yeah, a couple of official announcements. So the guys that we expected to be here are here. The 2 new additions, the punter and the head strength and whatever this guy's position is. But we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out, man. Dustin Little, that's his name, Dustin Little. All right, so let's start the breakdown, man. Since we have so few tight ends and quarterbacks are going to be the positions that we do. Right now, the team has, believe it or not, 4 tight ends listed, and I'm willing to bet that without looking it up, you have no idea who the 4th one is. I'm willing to bet that you're questioning who the 3rd tight end is, huh?
Ross Dwelley and Cole Wick.
All right. You got one of them right. Ross Dwelley is there. Cole Wick is not the other one, according to the team website. It's some guy named Marcus Lucas. Never heard of him. I've never heard of this Marcus Lucas guy. And so I'm going to pull up another site really quick just to make sure that we have all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed for this segment here. But we're going to start the breakdown, all right? So what we normally do is we go over what the guys did, and if we think there's going to be any major changes with them, and will they make the final 53-man roster. It's basically what we try to project here. And I think we should start with the safest of all of them, in George Kittle. So I'll give you the floor while I go ahead and Google, make sure I have the rest of these guys listed here at tight end. And yeah, the floor is yours, man.
All right, so we all know George Kittle last year led the league in yards. He also led the league in yards after catch. I didn't realize he was older, like you were saying earlier. 25 years old. He's going to be 26, right? You said. I didn't realize he was that old. Not old, but that's old for NFL years, I guess you could say. when considering the fact that you're used to, when you're drafted, you're used to being 20 or 21, I guess, somewhere 19. George Kittle's absolutely a lock. I mean, he was the offense last year. I'm excited to see what we can do with him again, because a lot of teams are going to start locking down on him, trying to cover him. It was funny because Croc said something the other day. I think it was on Twitter or it was in our group chat. And I'm talking about Eric Crocker. If you guys want to follow any DB specialists on Twitter, make sure you go give him a follow at Eric_Crocker, Crocker. He does a lot of good positional breakdown stuff like that. But anyway, he said that he doesn't believe, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mike, because I know you've probably seen it too, but he doesn't believe George Kittle is really a pass-catching tight end. It's just that he's open, and he doesn't really create separation. When he is open, he just catches the football, but he's not more of a in-traffic, contested type catcher, which I was really surprised to hear him say that, because, I mean, here's a tight end that led the league in yards per catch, yards after catch, and with 1,377 yards receiving. Now, you were saying last year too how it's the George Kittle, Nick Mullens show, or the George Kittle, CJ Beathard show, or the George Kittle, Jimmy Garoppolo show. It was like you were like, they're always going to George Kittle. I don't know if that's the way the game plan was schemed, or if it just wasn't that people couldn't cover him. But I'm looking forward to see what kind of bounce back year. I don't want to say bounce back, but year that George Kittle is going to have, because of what he did last year. People are going to be more focused on him. I'm sure people were focused on him like after week 6 or 7, but for some reason they're going to be game planning to cover him more, and different ways of doing that. And it opens up things that, like we said before, if we start putting another wide receiver out or a running back in the slot, it'll open things up for him as well. So he's definitely a lock, but that's my feelings on George Kittle. I'm excited to see what he can do, and hopefully he doesn't have a junior slump, because he really had a freshman slump because he was hurt. So really his freshman year, sophomore year, but freshman year, he balled out. So is that slump going to come to George Kittle?
It's a good question, man. And you talked about a couple of things I want to try to go backtrack on. I'll start with the whole Eric Crocker's comment about George Kittle not being a pass-catching tight end. There's a lot of guys in the NFL that at the tight end position, you have some guys who are better blockers than they are wide receivers. You have guys who are way better wide receivers, and they're horrible at blocking. And George Kittle is supposed to be a better blocking tight end. He just happens to be really good once he gets the ball in his hands. It's not like he catches everything thrown his way, and maybe that's what Eric was alluding to. He's someone who has a career percentage catch rate about 66%. Last year it was down, believe it or not, from his rookie year to under 65%, like 64% and some change as far as the passes that he was catching. But it was what he did with the ball in his hands afterwards. You were recently doing a film breakdown, and you started with that Vikings game. And there was a play in that game where he was wide open. I mean, yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo could have thrown the ball a half a second sooner. But if George Kittle had caught that ball, I mean, it's a touchdown. And it was probably, 60 to 70 yards away from the end zone at that?
Yeah, I mean, the ball was – I mean, it was a good ball. It was just a little bit overthrown. And I think the reason that it was overthrown was I think it was just overthrown due to the fact that Garoppolo held onto it, like you said, for a second or two. I would say a split second or so. I don't want to say 2 seconds, because 2 seconds is a long time in football. But a split second too long, and he had pressure coming in his face. So when he kind of threw the ball up to get it over the defender, which probably he put a little bit more on it because of the fact that he's throwing more at a higher projection. But, I mean, the ball was just out of reach for George Kittle. But the way that Kyle Shanahan schemes him open, like Ali was asking me about that play. So when I finally got to it, I checked it out. It was like 10 minutes and 50 seconds in the third quarter. If you guys want to know what play we're talking about, week 1, 10 minutes and 50 seconds into the third quarter. Well, left in the third quarter. But it's just amazing how well. I mean, he would have been gone if he would have caught the touchdown, like caught the pass. He'd have been wide open. But I don't blame that all on Jimmy Garoppolo, and I don't put the blame on George Kittle, obviously. But there was a lot of pressure in his face, and I was really surprised he still got the ball off because that's how close the guy was in his face. I don't remember who. I think it was Anthony Barr, actually. I think that's who it actually was.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a defender in your face like that, it's going to affect the trajectory of the ball, and that's exactly what it did. But I still think that Kittle, if he had have known, he would have been able to catch that. It wasn't like he was running full speed, and it was he like
No, he was running his route, and then like he looked up, and then he's like, "Oh shit!" Like tried to go after it, and he stretched out. I can't stretch my other arm out, but he stretched out, and it was like literally, probably not even a foot off of his fingertips. Like, but yeah, like I think you're right. If he would have known that the ball was coming, like right at that moment, then he would have. He probably would have caught it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So my man Anthony is popping in here with us, and right now he's getting in. Like I said, as soon as we start the tight ends talk, I figured he was going to be here. Anthony, right now, what we're doing is we're discussing George Kittle and his contributions to the team last year. And it's all obvious. What was it like? Something like 88 receptions, like Nick said, 1377 as far as the yards. And we expect him to make the roster. We expect him to be a starter this year. So let's change it up a little bit. I want you to tell me like a projection for George Kittle this coming season. Tell me, try to predict one of his stats. It could be just the number of catches or number of touchdowns. That was a problem. He only had like 5 touchdowns or something like that, 4 or 5 touchdowns this year. He kind of disappeared in the red zone. So pick any random stat, try to predict that, and also, yeah, give me a George Kittle prediction, and then let me know something you would like to see him improve in, which is not the same as a prediction. All right.
Okay, so what's going on, guys? It's Anthony. It's good to be here with the NB9 crew, like always. Just real quick, my little rituals. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Perry925. I'm always tweeting about Niners stuff. Check out our articles. Check out everything the guys write about because we're all into it. Okay, I had to get that out of the way. So if I don't know if this kind of sounds like a bold prediction or not, but like bear with me here. If wide receiver doesn't work out and the overall core is just unhealthy and it's really unstable, and if Kittle is healthy, I can honestly see him getting over 100 catches. I know it's a little overblown, but with how Shanahan values tight ends in this offense, and we've already seen what Kittle can do with the ball in his hands, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Garoppolo or Mullens or whatever happens is just going to try and force feed Kittle as much as they can. And I mean, I felt like we really saw that a lot last season, is that Kittle was just constantly getting the ball. I mean, I get it that our wide receiver core was unhealthy, and we had a flurry of quarterbacks, and I understand that when any quarterback doubt happens, go to the tight end. That always happens in the NFL. It's just the tight end is always there. It always seems to be there, at least, especially when nothing else is working. So with that being said, I can see Kittle getting over 100 catches, but that's if everything doesn't work out. Even then, I can see him exceeding 90 catches. That's without a doubt. And then one thing I would really like to see him improve on is, like you brought up earlier, is the red zone thing. I understand that this offense has a lot of problems in the red zone to begin with. And when you're a guy like George Kittle, who clearly has become the number one option in this kind of offense, I want to see him do what he can. I want to see him really get in there and be physical and bully linebackers or even bully DBs, whether he's matched up one-on-one or whether it's finding soft spots in zone in the red zone. That's what I want to see from him, because I think there was a point last season when Kittle really called on that the wide receiver core isn't working out the way it should be. And I think Kittle did make that adjustment. But there were minor things that we saw from Kittle last season that are really relatively things I don't want to see come next season. Like, I feel like he did have a handful of drops. I know he did in the Vikings game. And I get it's a lot easier to point out when you really are the number one option. But if the wide receiver thing is addressed and it gets better, we can't afford to have drops. Or last season, too, he kind of dealt with nagging injuries here and there, and I get the whole team did. But maybe that's another minor thing I want to see him improve on. Is just, man, I don't want to sound like I don't want it to sound like a bad thing, but I want people to understand that when you're the number one option and you're pretty much the only go-to option, I want to see him just busting and trying to stay healthy and just doing everything he can to make sure he stays on the field. Because we got to admit that without Kittle last season, the offense wouldn't have been fun to watch. Let's get that. And I get that Shanahan is a genius and he can scheme guys open, but no one honestly had that athleticism and that playmaking like Kittle did. And so that, I guess that's the two minor things. Nothing really major is the red zone issue and the nagging injuries.
And this was this past season. He actually finished. He played all 16 games, started all 16. But the previous season, he did miss a couple of games. He missed one game, if I'm not mistaken. He didn't start all of the games last year either. Last season. So, Nick, what I asked Anthony for was a prediction. Just pick one stat, and his prediction was 90 catches. So George Kittle would have to catch 5.5 passes, 5.6 passes a game. Which seems doable. I think. I think it's going to depend on his quarterback also, but I'll get to that in a second. So, Nick, I want to ask you the same thing that I asked Anthony, because we all know that he's going to make the roster. We all know he's going to be our starter. What we don't know is how he's going to perform. So, I want a prediction on one stat. It could be touchdowns. Anthony did catches already. It could be yards, whatever it is. Give me a prediction on one stat, and then also tell us something that you would like to see him improve on. Anthony said that he would like to see him improve in his red zone efficiency. So, right? It was like catches in the red zone, you said, right? Yeah. All right. So, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has to improve in the red zone. It's not just George Kittle. It seems as when we get down to the 20 or in that red zone, we just kind of stall. I mean, last year we kind of bit our foot in a couple games too, just going back and watching the season again. I think I'm on like week 6. But week 1, we easily could have had another 2 touchdowns. One of those was an Alfred Morris fumble on the 1 that would have tied the game. Another was a really bad throw from Jimmy Garoppolo, who was throwing into no man's land to end the game. We had I think there was 2 minutes and 13 seconds left. It was 24-16 at that time. And another one was the missed opportunity from George Kittle, which would have probably been a touchdown. Red zone efficiency with this team has been really, really, really horrible for the last 3 years. Easy. I can just say 3 years. It's probably been longer than that. I would like to see George Kittle get better with contested catches. Not that he wasn't good, but when he is covered, he seems like he doesn't catch as many balls as he does when he's schemed wide open. Now, to be that, he's probably going to get more coverage on him this year than he did last year, whether it's in the red zone or anywhere on the field. People are going to be paying attention to him. When you're a 1,300-yard receiver, you're going to get paid more attention to. Doesn't matter who you are. I would mainly like to see him improve in the red zone. Like I said, contested catches and his blocking. His blocking, as good as it seems that he was, there was a lot of times that he literally whiffed on blocks in the first 6 games that I've watched, over again, watching on the all 22. There was times where he was getting beat to the outside. His slide for pass protection wasn't as good. So I'd like to see him buckle down a little more on the blocking and red zone. They're the 2 main things that I'd like to see him progress in and get better at.
What was your prediction? I'm sorry.
Oh, my prediction for him, I don't think he's going to have another 1,300-yard receiving year. I'll go close to 1,000 yards, but I think he's going to have at least 7 touchdowns next year instead of 5.
Okay. All right, cool. You stole my improvement. I wanted to see him improve in his pass blocking. It just seemed like the plays that he was asked to stay in, it was where he kind of struggled the most. You know what I mean? But I mean, we're asking for perfection from this guy. George Kittle. I mean, I'm gonna mean, you guys know how I feel about it already, but I've been doing it. I'm going to continue doing it while we do these position breakdowns. I'm going to share with you guys his PFF numbers. So there's his overall offensive grade, there's his receiving grade, there's his run blocking grade, there's his passing grade. So his pass blocking grade was a 56.2, which ranked 37th for all tight ends, okay? His run blocking grade was a 73.7, which ranked him 73.3, which ranked him 6th amongst all tight ends that qualified. His receiving grade was the best in the league. That was at an elite or a high quality standard at 90.5, and his overall offensive grade was also the highest amongst his position, 89.8. I mean, guys, listen, we are absolutely nitpicking when we are asking for him to improve on anything. We understand that. It's just the thing that I asked everyone to do. George Kittle is a monster. He's a stud. He's a star. And he became the distraction, so to speak. He became the guy on offense going down the stretch. The inconsistencies at the wide receiver position, the inconsistencies even at his own position. Celek was there, and then there were games where I felt like I didn't see Celek at all. It seemed like we ran a lot of one tight end sets. Like, where's Celek at? Where's Dwelley? Where's Cole Wick, Hicatini? Like, where was everyone at? It seemed like it was just Kittle. And not to mention the overturning of the running back position. We went through so many running backs all the time. It was the one constant was George Kittle, and he even still, like Anthony said, had a couple of nicks here and there. So it wasn't even like George Kittle was the guy that was active and healthy all the time. So Nick stole my thunder there. So the problem with going last is that everyone else gets to say something. But I think what I would like to see him improve on is going to be his catching percentage. I'm not worried about the overall number of catches. I would like for him to be a little bit more dependable. 64% is not going to I think next year, if the team is where I want us to be, 64% ain't going to cut it. I would like for him to get a little bit higher than that, get around that 70% mark, and then we'll be cooking. And as far as a prediction for him, I am going to predict. All right, Nick, you said your prediction was touchdowns?
Yeah, I said 7 instead of 5.
So that's it? All right, okay.
Because I think we're going to utilize more running backs in that situation as well. That's why. If we didn't add a receiver like Jordan Matthews as well, who has 16 of 22 catches for touchdowns, 16 of his 22 touchdowns in the red zone. If he makes this team, I think he's going to become a red zone threat more. I think George Kittle will get his breakaways and things like that. So I'm going to go 7. Obviously, I'm hoping he does more than that. But last year he led the team with 5 and was matched up with a couple other guys with 5. Dante Pettis. You expect your receivers to have about the same amount of your tight end, but I think George Kittle is a really good tight end. And yeah, 7. I'm not gonna keep going. 7.
It's all good, man. All right, I'm gonna try to predict his total yards. I'm gonna give him. He's not gonna get 1,000 yards this year. I'm gonna give him 867 yards. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy. I think Jimmy Garoppolo finishes the entire season. And what that unfortunately is going to mean for George Kittle is less targets, which is why I want his percentage of receptions to go up, not so much what he's going to do with the ball afterwards. One thing that Jimmy Garoppolo did very, very well was spread the ball around. There were games where he had 8 guys that had receptions, you know what I mean? And that's going to hurt a guy like George Kittle. We saw at the end of the season, especially the last game against the Rams, they were just forcing it to him. You look at the one highlight play that he had, it was like this miraculous catch where he was surrounded by 3 defenders. I don't remember if it was the Rams game also or not, but it was a pass that should not have been made by Nick Mullens, and he kind of tipped it to himself and caught it and just took off. It was in the middle of 3 people, and that's one of the plays that the NFL shows all the time, like of one of the best catches of the year. The 49ers are not going to be forcing him the ball like that if Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy and back in there. So I think his targets go down, but I would like to see that efficiency come back up. 867 yards is what my prediction is going to be. Book it, baby. But again, we're looking for perfection, and it's not fair to George Kittle. So he's going to be good. He's still going to be the number one wide receiver. I don't think he is going to be close to the production of a Travis Kelce next year. I think Kelce is going to be back at the number one receiving tight end next season. But I do think that he improves on his pass blocking efficiency as well that Nick talked about. So let's keep it moving, guys. That's enough time on George Kittle. I didn't expect it to go that long, honestly, because I thought we were going to be like, yeah, he's good. He's going to make the team, whatever. Let's go to Celek time, man. Let's talk about Garrett Celek. You guys have any thoughts on him and any reflections from him last year? It's not that he was, he wasn't himself. Maybe it was due to injuries. Maybe it was due to just lack of usage. But the 49ers didn't seem too concerned with including Garrett Celek down the stretch. I have a stats pulled up here. It was nothing, man. I'm looking at these stats and I'm like, this can't be right.
I think he only had like 200 and some odd yards.
I wish. Guess how many receptions he had last year?
I'd probably say, just off my head, just trying to guess, 8.
Wow.
I was gonna say 18.
18. Yeah, 5. He had 5 catches last year for 90 yards.
He was hurt though last year.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's, a lot of people are like, what happened to Garrett Celek? Where did he go and all that stuff? We can say he was hurt.
Wait, how many yards did he have?
90. And
he scored a 40-yard touchdown.
Right. He had two touchdowns last year. His longest reception was a 41-yarder.
Yeah.
Which is almost half of the yards right there. He was active for 15 games. I can't sit here and say that he wasn't healthy. He was active for 15 of them. The team, just like I said, it seemed to be a lot of one tight end sets last year. And I don't know if it was due to all the injury and they were trying to, do something a little different or what. But the 2017 season, we did a lot of 2 tight end sets. We didn't see that this past season. And we know Kyle Shanahan is going to do what he thinks is best for his guys. So maybe that was more of a scheme thing than it was a reflection of Garrett Celek. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on him. His 2017 stats were 5 receptions, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns, long of a 41.
Do you guys think he's before I get into my comments, do you guys, just a yes or no, do you guys think he's a fringe roster player?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. What about you, Nick?
I couldn't hear you.
Do you think he's a fringe roster player?
Oh, a fringe roster player? I'm going to say no. And the reason I'm going to say no is because he's been here through all these coaches. So he's obviously doing something right. It's kind of like the whole Jimmy Ward situation. This guy's been through 3 or 4 different coaches, and everybody seems to like him and keep him. We've had good tight ends. We've had Ross Dwelley, which was pretty decent. So I don't want to say he's a fringe roster player because he must be doing something right to be staying in the building. Because we've seen these guys, these coaches in this front office get rid of people when they don't like them. Hence, like a Joe Williams, who we drafted, and we cut ties with him. So I don't want to say he's a fringe roster player, but I also don't want to say that Garrett Celek, when he's playing well, is a half decent. He's more than average of a blocker. Pass catching, he's not. We could definitely use more speed on that side and better hands than Garrett Celek on opposite side of Kittle, so that we have 2 good tight ends out there. But I think Celek still gets it done. I think last year was just pretty much we saw what he did in the last 5 games or 6 games of last year. He really came on too with the absence of George Kittle. He played well. And he really hasn't had a whole lot of chance to shine. Saying playtime by himself. And when he did, he played pretty well. Even when before Kyle Shanahan was here, they came in, they extended him. I think they extended him like the first week or 2 they were here. But yeah, I wouldn't say he's a fringe roster player. I think that it's just nobody else behind him can beat him out yet. So I don't think he's just here because he fills a void. I think he's here because he's an average tight end for what Kyle Shanahan's looking for. When he's not injured, he's half decent and he's above average blocker. So I think it's just because nobody is here to beat him out. And that's the reason that he's a average tight end for this system. So,
Okay, yeah, I think like I want to say like you, I want to say he's a borderline roster player, but at the same time, the depth behind him is really bad. But I will say this tight end class is relatively deep in the draft. You have guys like Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson and Jay Sternberger and even the guy from San Diego. I can't think of his name. I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners address tight end in the draft, especially if there's nothing that's going to happen with what's left of free agency. And I say that because I brought this up in the last couple videos ago. A lot of teams seem to be gearing more towards the two athletic tight end sets. We've seen two tight end sets start to become more relative and more popular in this league. And teams are starting to really want to have two physical and two athletic tight ends. We see it with teams like New England, even with Dwayne Allen and Gronkowski. Baltimore has it with Mark Andrews and Hayden Hurst. Just simple combinations like that, which make a big difference with two active tight ends. I could see the Niners doing. With that being said, though, I think Celek, if we do address tight end, becomes the third tight end on our depth chart. He's definitely better than Dwelley. He's definitely better than Wick and Hickatini. And, nothing's going to top Kittle. So with that being said, Celek is a good roster player to have because he only had 5 catches, and yet players seem to say Celek time. Oh, Celek time. And it's like, God, Celek time didn't seem to be that often. It only happened 5 times. So with that being said, Celek could be safe. But at the same time, if the Niners do address tight end in the draft and Shanahan likes to value the younger tight ends like Hickatini or like Wick more, I wouldn't be surprised if Celek's spot isn't safe. I think we could definitely upgrade at the second tight end spot, albeit it's nice to have an average tight end in your second spot because there's not so much you can expect. But at the same time, I think having a nice athletic tight end would make this offense surge even more, and we already have Kittle. So being able to pair another good tight end like Hawkinson or like Sternberger with Kittle, I think would not only improve all aspects of the tight end game outside of Kittle, I think it would also mask the problems that we have a wide receiver if that isn't fixed in any way. Just off of last season alone, it seems like Shanahan did a lot more to make Kittle a weapon rather than the wide receivers. And I get that the wide receiver talent really wasn't there, but I felt like Shanahan put more of an effort to get the ball in Kittle's hands because he's a lot more reliable and, just more trustworthy. So with that being said, again, if wide receiver isn't really addressed in the matter in which we expect it to be, I would expect another tight end to be drafted. And I'm kind of a big Hawkinson or fan, if you will. So I think pairing another tight end out of Iowa with another tight end who is already from Iowa and Kittle, I don't know. I think it would work out. So I guess back to the main question, Celek's spot is somewhat safe. But if we have the chance to upgrade, I think we do it.
If Hawkinson drops to pass into the second round, that somebody's not watched. There's 2 tight ends in this entire draft, Fant, whatever, however you want to say it, and Hawkinson. If either of those drop to the second round, I would jump for joy because
we take that with our second pick instantly.
Yeah, I would
instantly,
but there's no possible way they drop to the second round. No possible way.
And let's hear this from Mike.
Even if they did, the Niners aren't taking a tight end with their second pick. I'm not saying that those guys aren't good. I'm not saying that they won't contribute. And you guys know that I've been saying we need to get another tight end. But we're not taking that number with 36 overall. The reason I say that is this trade that happened, the trade that didn't happen, the trade between the Giants and the 49ers. The Giants were insistent on that number 2 pick. The Niners refused to give them that specific pick. So there's a lot of people who are saying, oh, well, will the Niners go wide receiver at 2? Or will they trade back and try to get a wide receiver later in the first round with the pick? The answer to that is no. If you were going to get a wide receiver with your number 2 pick, you would have just given that pick to get Odell. So because we didn't do that, that means that the Niners already know who they're drafting at number 2. They have a plan. And if you already know what you're doing with number 2, that means you already know what you're doing with your second pick. You're not letting the board fall to you. You have your first 2 picks, and you need those first 2 picks. We don't need another tight end. We can get a guy off the street, like this Marcus Lucas guy that we're going to talk about a little bit later. Cole Hikatini. They're guys that are already familiar with the system that were here. Ross Dwelley is someone who has way better hands than George Kittle. Doesn't have the speed, but he has better hands than Kittle, and he can also come in here and be a contributor. But back to Garrett Celek though. He's 30 years old now, and he's been like old faithful for us 49er fans the last couple of seasons. We went through the Vernon Davis and Vance McDonald thing, and he's always been that guy just kind of like lingering in the background, just barely holding on to his roster spot, not doing anything stellar, but never bad enough where you're like, I got to get this guy off of my team. He's never been that type of guy, where you see someone like, me, how I was pulling for Quentin Patton all the time, right? Quentin Patton will make a play, and then like 2 plays later, he's doing something really boneheaded on the sideline, like sitting on someone. It's like, what are you doing? Garrett Celek never did anything like that where you're like, we have to get this guy off the team. He's a liability. He's never been a liability. He's barely an asset, but he's never been a liability. Between age, lack of usage last year, and just getting another year older. I mean, that's age again, but I just don't see him making the roster, man. I don't see it happening. And if you look at his number from last year, he didn't qualify for receiving because we just said that he only had 5 catches. But his pass blocking grade was a lot better than George Kittle's. It was 61.3, which placed him 30th amongst tight ends. George Kittle was 37th. His run blocking grade wasn't bad. It was a 66.2, which was good for 21st. And the last 2 grades were his receiving and his overall grade. His receiving grade was 61.7, but he didn't have enough receptions to qualify. And then you have his overall offensive grade of a 63.7, but he wasn't on the field enough to have a good enough qualifying overall offensive grade. This guy's going to be 31 next month. The month after that, he's going to be 31. And like I said, I've got nothing against him. I can't think of a bad thing to say about him, but I just want better. And so I'm hoping that he doesn't make the roster. That's all. It's not a knock against him or anything like that. He is a really, really good backup to your backup plan. You're not going to blow the doors off with him. You're not going to set the world on fire with him in anything. But he's a serviceable guy. I just don't see us bringing him back in. So that's my take on him. You guys want to touch on anything else with Garrett Celek before we move on?
I was just looking at his contract. So he's only making a base salary of $1.7 million this year. In 2019, his final year on his contract. So, I mean, if Ross Dwelley was better than him, he would have made the roster last year. So I think what really stalled Celek last year, like I said, as being feasible, like you said, is it was a broken thumb, I believe, that he was playing through for the first couple weeks of the season. He was still playing, but he probably, because he could block with the broken thumb, but he wasn't catching. So that could have been why things were different scheme-wise. But I mean, we need a better. I like Garrett Celek, but we need somebody who's faster, somebody with better hands, and is an all-around tight end, kind of like George Kittle, on the opposite side so that you don't know who you're blocking or who you're going to cover or who's going to go out and drop out for a pass. But I wouldn't – if we don't sign somebody, I really don't think we're going to draft a tight end this year at all because we have other needs on this team. I think Celek can fill in, and if he's healthy, he's average or just probably a little below average. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out because if we don't sign somebody through free agency as a tight end, which I doubt we will do, and I don't think we'll draft one because there's not really a ton in the draft this year because I'm not taking a tight end in the first 3 rounds, probably not even the first 4, and then we don't pick again until 6 and 7. So unless you're picking one in the 6th and 7th round, I don't see us drafting one. And it'll be interesting to see if Ross Dwelley the battle between Ross Dwelley, Cole Hicatini, maybe after being on the practice squad for a year, because that is a drafted guy. But yeah, so I'm interested to see what happens there.
We drafted Cole Hicatini?
Yeah, well, he was an undrafted guy.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But he came in with this regime.
Yeah.
What I meant. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to Ross Dwelley and just keep the thing moving. Garrett Celek is someone I wouldn't mind being here, but I would like to see us improving. If we're improving at the position, I just think it's hard for him to make the roster. So we're going to start the same way that we did with Garrett Celek, and guess how many receptions Ross Dwelley had. Don't cheat either, guys. I see you guys over there. I know Anthony can't do it right now, but Nick is in front of the computer. He can cheat. Anthony, just give me a quick guess, man. Do you think he had any receptions, and if so, how many?
3.
Okay. All right. And Nick, what do you think? Ross Dwelley's, did he have any receptions? And if so, how many? You're on mute.
I can't remember him having any catches in the regular season. I remember him having like 2 or 3 in the preseason. I'm just gonna go with 5, which I think is probably 2 or 1.
He had 2 receptions for a total of 14 yards. What's crazy is I can only remember 1. It was towards the end of the year, and we were in red zone. He didn't get in the end zone. He got really, really close to getting in the end zone, but he stood up and he was mad hype. He was super hype about it, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "Did he get in?" Because like he's really excited about this. It was the second half of the season. Let me see if I can find the splits.
While you're doing it, let me just cut you off. I just want to say I appreciate Mark Cavanis dropped us $20. He says, "Got to get to work." SMH, shaking my head, but showing my support as usual, fellas. Keep it up. I'll be watching later. Mark, appreciate that, man. The love and support that you guys give us, the donations, really appreciate that. And big shout out to you, man. Thank you.
Is that what SMH means? It means shaking my head?
Yeah.
I was just joking, dude. I was joking. Yeah, no, we always appreciate that, man. That's awesome. It was against the Rams. It was a 6-yard play. It was he was so hyped. I wish I could like screen share with you guys so you can see that play, man. He was so excited about like he got up and was like, yeah. Like
was it a first down?
Huh?
Was it even for a first down?
No, but I think he thought he got a touchdown. He was so close to the end zone, man. It was cute. It was he was so close to the end zone. He was hyped, man, and it didn't get in. But back to what I was saying, I think Ross Dwelley is someone who has better hands than George Kittle, and I think he could have a purpose here, so sorry.
Anthony, everybody said, did you forget to pay your power bill because they can't see you? Turn your light on.
My man looks like he's sitting outside chilling, enjoying the weather.
I'm chilling outside in the front. As long as you can hear me, it's fine.
We can barely do that, by the way. They said you're extremely low, just so you know.
Okay. I'll yell.
All right. But yeah, so Ross Dwelley, the 2 receptions, man. I tell you what, though, one stat that I found that was surprising about him was that he was active for 11 games. I would have never guessed that. I would have never guessed that he was active for 11 games. So the Niners see some kind of value in him. It might not be showing yet, but, they expect him to be able to contribute if called upon. So let's do this one with him. We won't waste a lot of time on him. I will give you guys his PFF stats. He didn't qualify for anything, so let me just say that now. But I will read you his pass blocking grade, his run blocking grades, his receiving grade, and his offensive overall grade. So pass blocking, it was actually pretty high at 70.3. His run blocking was a 53.6. His receiving grade was a 64.4. And his overall offensive grade was a 61.6. Not great, but not bad either for a guy who didn't do too much. It'd be interesting to see how much he can contribute with a larger role. Do you guys, we'll do this a quick yes or no. Do you guys think he makes the 2019 final 53-man roster?
I mean, it's kind of hard to determine now because we got a long time to go before that.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's fun. It's a prediction. No one in here is gonna in this group chat is gonna be like, oh, but you said Ross Dwelley was gonna make it.
I do think he does make it, and that's because he plays special teams. I think filling out the special teams juice. There's going to be some guys on this team that are just special teamers that play special teams. So I'm going to say yes because he's not a lot. He's a reliable backup. I know you gave a run block grade of like 52% or something like that. But from what I remember in preseason, I don't remember the one catch you're talking about in the regular season.
It might have been the Rams game. You don't remember that?
What's that?
The Rams game?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't remember it specifically. It might have been if Garrett Celek was out or something, so I don't really remember it specifically. I'll have to go back and watch it now because, since you said it was cute, I don't know where that word came from, cute. But, yeah, so I think as of right now, where we stand, I think it will be Celek, Kittle, and Dwelley. And Dwelley will be here for backup to the other two guys and then play special teams. But a lot can change from now.
Absolutely. Yeah. We got the draft. We got undrafted free agency. We have no idea. But as it stands right now, I think he'd make the team. Anthony, your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I'm kind of on your side, Mike. I do think he does have better hands than Kittle. I think he's not he's obviously not really as athletic as Kittle is or as much of a playmaker as Kittle is, but I think he's more sure-handed, and that's why I think he'll make the roster. I think he'll be tight end 3. And I honestly think if Celek goes down, I think Dwelley will finish next season with 10 or more catches, at most 10. But yeah, I real quick, what you said about his blocking grades, I actually think that's pretty huge because if you can even block at an average level and you're the third string tight end on the team who generally plays special teams, I think Shanahan sees that and I think he likes that and I think that means he holds a lot of value. I know Nick and I made the point that it'd be nice to have a second athletic tight end, but I would just as much rather have a tight end who could be at least an average run and pass blocker. And if Dwelley can be that, he definitely deserves a roster spot. So yeah, I think he makes it.
All right. I like it, man. I like it. We won't waste any more time there with Ross Dwelley. I'm looking forward to seeing what the young man can do in the future and going forward. Watching him in preseason battle for a roster spot, it's going to be a lot of fun. So for the fourth and final tight end that's listed on the 49ers roster, it's a guy that I've never heard of. He's a 6'4", 250-pound tight end, obviously. He's 27 years old, and his name is Marcus Lucas. All right. Now, I was looking this guy up, and he's already a journeyman in the NFL. And I won't ask you guys about how many catches do you think he had. I won't ask you guys when do you think the 49ers acquired him, because even that surprised me. I will ask you this. How many games he's been in the NFL since 2014, okay? How many games do you think he was active for?
I'm going to say 4.
Okay. Nick?
I'm going to say 2.
Since 2014, you think he's only been active for 2 games?
Yeah.
You're both wrong. You're way too high. 0. So my question is this. I'm not even going to, he has no PFF stats. He's 27 years old. He's been in the league since 2014 as an undrafted free agent. He's bounced around from team to team. He's been on a lot of teams. A lot of teams. How does a guy last in the NFL going on to his 5th season and never acted for a single game? How is that possible? Like, how is he still in the league?
There's always a desire for bodies. I mean, that's the most I can say. I mean, it's like look at Sean Coleman. Why did we pick up Sean Coleman? Did he played what, like 2 snaps last season?
Yeah, but he was picked up as a swing tackle, though. He's a guy that can do guard and swing tackle. I mean, they brought him in for depth. At least he was active, though. You know, like this guy's never been active for a game. I'm not talking about snaps. I'm talking about just, hey, get your jersey and come to the stadium today. He's never got that call in 4 full seasons. He's never got that call. That's insane to me.
If Shanahan can make something out of Kittle, he can make something out of Lucas.
My man is looking at all of the positives. Okay, I like it, man. I like it. But at least Kittle was drafted, though. This guy was an undrafted free agent. Let me tell you guys a little bit about Marcus Lucas. Okay, so I already told you guys that he was drafted in 2014. He's a 6'4". He's 6'4" and some change, 218 pounds. So he's actually a little light. He was picked up by the Carolina Panthers in 2014. He was also there for 2015 on the practice squad. Then he went in 2015. He was cut from the Panthers, went to the Dolphins. In 2015, he was cut from the Dolphins, went to the Bears. And then he went back to the Panthers in 2016. They kept him for the remainder of that season, except to the very end where he went to the Seahawks, 2016 and 17. He was then cut by the Seahawks, and then he went to the Colts in 2017. And the Colts cut him, and he went to the Raiders. And the Raiders cut him, and he went to the Lions in 2018. In 2018, the Seahawks said, no, we want him back. And then John Lynch said, oh, the Seahawks got a guy? I want him. And now he's a 49er. We got this guy. We signed. I don't know how we missed this, Nick. This is something that we pride ourselves on. We signed this dude December 18th of 2011. How do we miss it?
I don't know, because I've never seen him on the active roster. I don't know.
He's never seen himself on an active roster either. But that's
well, I'm saying, like, I've never even seen him on the team list.
Right. Like, I didn't see him on the practice squad list or any. I don't remember getting him December 18th. But go ahead, Anthony. I saw you wanted to jump in and try to shed some positivity here.
No, I was gonna ask, what round was he drafted in?
He's undrafted.
Undrafted?
He wasn't drafted.
I don't have an answer for you, man. I mean, maybe he just wants to prove himself so he can get cut and go to the AAF. I don't know. Man, bodies, I guess, because all I can say is that Wick and Hicatini are way better options than this guy. So
they're not listed on the team site as being on the 49ers roster, but he is. He's the last guy he's the 4th one. So I won't waste your guys' time with this one. Here's the question. Do you think he makes the final 53-man roster?
No.
He has for the last 8 years.
He hasn't. No, that's not true.
No, I'm just saying.
Well, you know what?
No.
I can't say that. I don't know if he's made anyone's 53. He hasn't been active. You can make a 53-man roster and not be active, so it's possible.
Yeah. I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And this is nothing against him. It's nothing personal, but something's got to be going on that he just can't. I don't know. I don't see it. His entire professional career page of the Wikipedia is the team that signed him and the date, and then they let him go. The Dolphins signed him on September 29th, 2015. He imagine going there, signing your contract, you're smiling, hey mom, I just got signed. You wake up the next morning after you sign your contract and they cut you. What did he like fart in his sleep and they didn't like it and cut him? Like what could you do wrong overnight, bro? Like Jesus.
It's the same as getting fired on your day off.
Seriously. He signed his contract, went to the hotel, and then they released him.
who's his agent? Because whoever his agent is, he's doing him a huge favor. His agent is the plug.
Oh my God. I don't know who his agent is, but that's bad. All right. Let's move on to the quarterbacks. We have 3 guys to discuss here, guys. This is our bread and butter, and we're going to start with the man, the myth. No, he's not a myth. Well, maybe he is a myth because we haven't really seen him live up to the potential. But Jimmy Garoppolo, man. We're going to start with number 10. Jimmy Garoppolo, James Garoppolo. He's like, remember when they were doing that whole James thing on the 49ers team? There was like, what was it, like 5 Jameses out there? And then Chancellor James, and there was not Adrian Cole. It was somebody else in the secondary that was really a James.
Yeah, it was James, and James. It was
Kello.
Akello Witherspoon, Jimmy Garoppolo, and there was one other guy.
I think it was Chancellor James.
Oh yeah, Chancellor James. That's who it was.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. We know about the recovery and everything. We know what he's coming back for. Let's start with a reflection of what we saw from him in 2018 season. Let's be honest here, guys. Let's not sugarcoat things. Did Jimmy Garoppolo, in the limited sample that we saw, live up to the hype of what he finished the 2017 season or 2017-2018 season with? Anthony with the emphatic head shake there.
I would say no. It seemed like he took a step back with like overthinking things, holding on to the football a little bit longer. When I was watching, I think I said it to you the other night. It looked like when he was playing those first 3 games, he was only surveying the left side of the field. Didn't really look like he was switching his head to the right side of the field a lot. And this is just going back and watching those games, the Kansas City, Minnesota, and Detroit game. Now, we did win that Detroit game, but we almost lost that game as well, which was the home opener. I came back and watched that game more than once because of the fact that I was at that game. So when you're at the game, you really don't see everything, whether you're looking away, talking, screaming, doing whatever. So, no, he did not live up to the hype that he was supposed to. I'm hoping that, like John Lynch said before in one of his pressers, that Kyle and John said to Jimmy that we can't lose this year. This year has to be important, learning-wise, with you being hurt. So hopefully he studied more tape and has really gotten to know this offense. Mike is big. He has been big on talking about 2 years in Kyle Shanahan's system as quarterbacks. And Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't even have a full year under Kyle Shanahan. Not saying that he's going to be bad. I think he's going to be, a good quarterback. Is there things that he can work on? Yes. His deep throw needs to get better. His footwork, he throws off balance a lot. And he makes some. There was a clip out. I think John Chapman put it out. This is a while back. I think it was back in 2017, but I think he just tagged us in it again on Twitter, or somebody commented on it, and I watched it again. He's gonna make contested throws a lot, and he does that. Jimmy Garoppolo tests his receivers a lot. He throws into. I've seen him throw into triple coverage. I've seen him throw the ball to where the receivers have to come back and get it where a defender can still get it. Those things have to change. Those things have to get better. He has to stop throwing off of his back foot so much. In those first 5 games, what I saw from him compared to the 3 games I saw from last year, his footwork was totally different. He was throwing more off of his back foot. His angles he wasn't changing his angles as much. Now, I think he'll get all that fixed. But there were a lot of times, if you go back and watch, if you guys can, that he was just completely not seeing receivers that were wide open and was throwing into coverage more than you would want him to. And this is hence the reason why he throws so many interceptions. I don't know if he's not surveying the entire field. Like I said, there was a couple games in those first 3 weeks when I saw where he was really literally studying from the center of the field to the left. And then he would just throw to the left if he was covered or not when there's a guy wide open on the right side. So, no, he didn't live up to my expectations, to answer it easily.
So, is it crazy? I'm God, guys, I'm sorry. I don't want to say I'm joking, but is it crazy to think that if Garoppolo doesn't work out, that Trevor Lawrence is going to look good in our uniform next season or the season after? Because look, let's face it, Garoppolo in a small sample size when he was healthy the season before was nice to watch, but I'm gonna reiterate everything Nick said. This past season wasn't impressive to me. And when you have clearly one of the best offensive minds in football on your team as your coach, my expectations and our expectations are going to be a little bit higher than what we would expect from a normal coach that isn't Shanahan or McVay. And when you see Garoppolo throw balls into triple coverage or just make total bonehead throws like in the Minnesota game, it's going to make me question everything. I mean, it's not even with the throwing. When he tore his ACL, it's the decision making too. You have to have the wherewithal to know to get out of bounds. And I get you're trying to be gritty and fight for extra yards, but come on, dude. It's the heat of the moment, but you're being paid hundreds of millions of dollars, and to get off and tore your ACL in week 3, I mean, who knows, guys? This could be a blessing in disguise, and for all we know, next season could be fine. And quite frankly, I think it will be. I don't like thinking Garoppolo isn't going to work out, but seeing the questionable throws he makes and knowing that he only primarily read one side of the field compared to Nick Mullens, who pretty much gave anyone he could see the chance to catch the ball, really tells me that Garoppolo is going to have a lot to achieve come next season. And I get that the quarterback 1 spot is practically going to be handed to him, but it makes me think that if Nick Mullens worked out the way it did and he had some better weapons and better upgrades around him, is Garoppolo really the answer? And I know we'll get to Mullens, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but it just worries me when you see a guy like Garoppolo get paid so much money just to be average or just to do things that we don't expect quarterbacks of his caliber to do, you know? And the sad part to think about it, guys, is how many New England players leave that system and don't work out. And I get Garoppolo was a quarterback that only played 4 games, I believe. He only played 4 games, and then he got hurt. 2. He only played 2 in New England, and then he got knocked out, and then Jacoby Brissett stepped in. So that's why there's concern for me about Garoppolo is every year, it's New England players don't work out after they leave. And it worries me about that with Garoppolo because I don't want to see that. But at the same time, the sample size has been small, but when the expectations were already high for him last season, he didn't achieve it. He looked average. Quite frankly, he at some points looked below average. Let's face it. And Nick Mullens stepped in and performed at a higher expectation than Garoppolo. And Mullens came in as a UDFA and looked a lot better. So this is why we need to appreciate Parag Marath more, because Garoppolo's contract is essentially a 2-year, right? That's more or less how it's structured. It's essentially a 2-year contract. And if Garoppolo doesn't work out, we can get out of it. And if it doesn't work out, Parag is basically saving our butts. He really is. I don't want to be locked into $140+ million for a quarterback that's below average. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to simmer down my expectations of Garoppolo because I'm not going to be the one to scream, I told you so, or I was right, that Garoppolo isn't going to work out or he's just going to be average. But at this point, because Garoppolo was, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions before he tore his ACL? 5-3? And he roughly had a somewhat similar ratio the season before, too. So if that's the quarterback we're seeing from him, if that's the quarterback that we're going to see out of Garoppolo, then I'm not going to be impressed. He has a lot to prove as it is. He has a whole lot to prove. Look, I get it. He looks the part. You think of this, pretty boy Garoppolo. Look at him. He looks like the future. He looks like the guy. But so far, I haven't seen him perform to the expectations that we all expect him to be. And look, if if Nick Mullens can step in and be as successful as he is, then Garoppolo should have been too, even if it was 3 games. And I get that's different styles of quarterback play, but I can't have high expectations for him.
Look, I'm a crazy Nick Mullens lover and fan, but there's no way he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. There's no way.
Okay, so there's a difference between better and more effective. There's a huge difference. And Nick, I think you and I talked about this before. Mullens is probably the least physically gifted quarterback on this roster. But that doesn't mean that he's not more effective than other guys. I mean, no quarterback averaged close to the yards per game that Nick Mullens did. You know, and for whatever the reason is, that's just how it played out. It's not like we had a ton of wins with CJ Beathard. And Beathard, you would think, with all those losses that he's had, would be playing from behind so much that, hey, we got to throw the ball more. Yet he didn't average close to what CJ Beathard averaged per game. Not what Mullens averaged per game. Mullens was a distributor of the ball. He hated holding on to the ball. He wanted to get rid of it quickly. Those are the things that made Jimmy Garoppolo successful his first season with the 49ers. And all that being said, I saw a comment in this chat that said, I don't know if this person's serious. I don't know who this person is. But the comment in the chat said Nick Mullens will overtake Jimmy Garoppolo for the start. Listen, no. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It literally cannot happen. If Jimmy Garoppolo goes out there and throws 7 interceptions in preseason and Nick Mullens throws 7 touchdowns in preseason, Jimmy Garoppolo is still going to be the starter. It's not. There is literally nothing Jimmy Garoppolo can do to lose that job, and it's all based off of salary. It's all based off of salary. Okay? Now, that said, all that negative stuff said, I like what you said, Anthony. I like what Nick said. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to come back and be great. I think that he's going to have a career year. I think he's going to that whole 7 touchdowns to 5 interceptions or 5 touchdowns to 3 interceptions that he had last year, that's all done. That's all gone. The 49ers are looking for guys who get separation and get it early. And that's where Jimmy Garoppolo thrive. You look at the Kendrick Bournes. You look at the Marquise Goodwins. You look at the Jordan Matthews. You know what I mean? These are the guys that get separation quick. They get it early. Okay? You look at Trent Taylor should be coming back healthy. Richie James. These are guys that they're not gonna run 20-yard routes and get open at the end of them. That's not what any of these guys do well. They're all guys that when they put their foot in the ground, freaking Dante Pettis is the best at it. He puts his foot in his ground, he does this crazy, and he's gone. You're thinking he's going this way when he really went that way. That's exactly what Jimmy Garoppolo needs to thrive, and they're going to give it to him. And then here's the best part of it all. The injury that Jimmy Garoppolo had, in my opinion, was a blessing in disguise. I think Jimmy Garoppolo had no choice but to go back and say, what made me successful 2017 and 2018? And then he comes back and he watches his first 3 games and he says, what was I thinking holding on to the ball so long? I saw it. Nick saw it. Anthony saw it. Anybody who goes back and they watch those games, you can see that Jimmy Garoppolo seemed to be overthinking, just holding on to the ball for a half a second to a second too long almost all the time. The Lions game was probably his worst game, and that was the one game he won. That game was driving me crazy. I was screaming at the television so much, throw the damn ball. Just stop holding on to it. And again, I've said it on this show probably 4 or 5 times. I'll say it again. You see him walk to the sideline, and Kyle Shanahan literally says, you can read Shanahan's mouth, throw the fucking ball. Like, you can hear him say it. You see him say it. It was just the blessing in disguise is this. You get to step back. You get to look at CJ Beathard play. Man, this guy is not good. He's taking a lot of sacks. How come? He's holding on to the ball way too long. Then you see Nick Mullens coming here. All right, he wasn't the best, but man, he won games. He kept us competitive. What was he doing? He was going through his reads and throwing the ball. He wasn't holding on to it and trying to make plays with his legs. He wasn't, you know what I mean? Like trying to earn this Iron Man competition award for being a quarterback. You know, he went in there, he did his job, and he survived. He would live for the next play. That's what Nick Mullens did. If Jimmy Garoppolo adapts that mentality, we will see better than what we saw previously, because Jimmy Garoppolo in that quick release is great. And then another thing about this injury that he had this ACL. He's not going to be quick to run the way that he was last time. He's not going to be one of these guys that's going to be moving around the pocket a lot. He's going to work on his footwork in the pocket. And he's gonna be compact. He's gonna be in there. Like Nick said, he often threw off balance, off his back foot and things like that. He wasn't throwing, he wasn't setting his feet and throwing and releasing the ball. You're not gonna see that this year. You're gonna see him standing in there. He's gonna I predict you're gonna see more Peyton Manning than Tom Brady as far as the footwork goes. Peyton Manning would do this thing where he would just pat his feet, and then when it's time to turn, he would turn and keep patting his feet. This is what Peyton Manning's feet, they never crossed. It was never this. It was this. Peyton Manning's feet were always just bop, 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 bop. And then when he's ready to throw, just go. It looked ridiculous. I think you're going to see more of that from Jimmy Garoppolo this year. That quick release, the better footwork, and the time to sit back and study the playbook more. Like Nick said, we're not in year 2. Technically, he doesn't even have a full year under Shanahan as far as playing time. But I do think that we can see some progress with him. Nick, I saw you wanting to jump in here. What's up, man?
Well, like you were talking about with his bounce, he had that bounce in 2017 at the end of end of 2017. Those 5 games, it was just a and then if he had a rollout, he'd throw off his back foot, change angles more. I'm not going to put all of this on Jimmy Garoppolo because there were a ton of times going back and watching these games that receivers were nowhere near open to. And on probably out of the first 3 weeks that he played, out of the sacks that he had, probably 5 of those receivers were not open. And I can show you those clips as much as if you want to see them. But I'm not saying Jimmy Garoppolo is not the guy. Jimmy Garoppolo is by far 100 the best quarterback on this roster. As much as I love Nick Mullens, Jimmy Garoppolo is by far the best quarterback on this roster and probably can be a top 10 quarterback in this league. And I'm not going to say top 5 because I still want to see more of him. But I agree with you, Mike. I think he's going to come back. And like I said, where John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan said to him, we can't have this as a down year. You need to hit the books. You need to study. You need to do this. We can't have this as a lost year. Which is true. You're paying this guy so much money. He's got to learn the system. Last year, I think what happened was when he came in the first 5 games that he played, he didn't have a full playbook. He was pretty much learning as he go. So there wasn't a whole lot of thinking. The worst thing to do in football is think. Like, you're going to overthink everything. And you have to think about it fast. Like you said, quick hitting. And I know you preach that this offense is basically a timed offense. You say it over and over again. These quick slants, the way that things are drawn up. I wouldn't say that Nick Mullens came in and did. Nick Mullens played really, really well compared to CJ Beathard. Jimmy Garoppolo made some mistakes in the first 3 games. Like I said, he wasn't surveying the right side of the field. Go ahead. I see your hand up.
If you go back and watch Nick Mullens' first start, that Raiders game, it was extremely rhythmic. It almost looked like he was in like 2-minute mode the entire time. Nick Mullens' first, he get the snap, boom. All right, guys, we're walking up. He's giving his little signals to people. He was doing that, and they were in a rhythm.
Yeah, but if you look at this offense, every time they run the 2-minute offense, they drive down the field with no issues. It doesn't matter what quarterback's in the huddle. They literally drive at a 2-minute drive. They drive down the field like there's no tomorrow. I'm not even worried about Kyle Shanahan's 2-minute drive because the players execute on a 2-minute drive. I've seen it with CJ Beathard. I've seen it with Jimmy Garoppolo. I've seen it with Nick Mullens. So I don't want to say that that's on the quarterback. I think that's the design of plays. They already know them. They're not thinking. They're just going in. They're just executing. And they're executing it perfectly. I wish we could go no huddle because I always say the team, when they do no huddle, marches down the field within 2 minutes every single time. They'll go from the 20 to the 20 and then stall. But that's with any of those quarterbacks. I completely 100% agree with you, Mike. There's a huge difference between huddling up or just getting off the first play, calling out the signals, lining up, going and doing it again. All three quarterbacks, and I hate CJ Beathard, but he even performed in the 2-minute drill and marched his team down the field. I don't know what it is that makes it that way. But yeah, it's impressive. It's really impressive. So Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback here. Are there things I'd like to see him improve on and prove to people? Do I think that he's going to be better? Yes. I think that he's going to have a hell of a year. I agree with you. I think he's going to come back he's going to be better with his footwork, I'm hoping. He's also hopefully going to get back to that rhythm and know this offense more than he did last year. Not saying that he didn't know the whole offense last year, because I'm sure he did. But it gave him time, like you said, to sit back and evaluate himself on those 3 games where he was going wrong. Once he gets back, he's going to start thinking about that movement with his feet. But there was one thing Anthony said. Anthony, you can't judge a guy for not going out of bounds, man. It's football. You're driving to get the first down. It was a fluke-ass injury. If I was back there, I'm going for the first down. That's how ballers ball. You can't say, oh, I'm getting paid $137 million here. I got to get out of bounds without getting the first down. He did it in the Minnesota game too. If you go and watch, he makes a move and cuts on somebody to get the first down and stays in bounds. But he didn't get hurt, so it wasn't no big deal for everybody.
Well, it wasn't. I remember him getting hit.
Something like that. Hold on, Mike. If he does something like that again early in the season and he is out for the year, he is gone from this team. He's cut. That is the reality of it. Whether that's a mental mistake or a coaching mistake or whatever it is, if he gets hurt early on in the season again, he is gone.
Well, I agree with that for one reason. It's not because of him. It's not because I disagree with him trying to get out of bounds. Because that play, he did run towards the sideline. He was going to get out of bounds. He was trying to do the thing where they extend their hand with the ball. The problem is that he's been a starter twice in his life. Well, 3 times if you count the end of last season. 2 of those times he has had season-ending injuries. Happened in New England, then it happened here last year. A 3rd time, all of a sudden, he's getting that stigma. He's an injury-prone guy, and we have too much money invested in him. And if you guys look at any of these contracts, as good as Parag is, all of them include pretty big, significant injury guarantees. They don't want this guy to get injured again and have to pay him a ton of money to sit on the sidelines.
But how do you? This is what I don't understand. How do you?
Happens.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Anthony, repeat yourself, and then Nick, you remember your question. Don't forget it.
Sorry, I just said if Garoppolo gets hurt again or if something happens, he's Derek Carr. That's all I gotta say about that.
All right, I don't agree with that. But how do you tell a football player? So you're out here. Russell Wilson runs the ball all the time and tries to get first downs, and because he hasn't had a fluke injury, he's okay. It's football. Like you're both saying I agree that he won't be on this team if he goes and makes a football move trying to get a first down, that he's going to be gone.
I'm not saying how he gets the injury. I'm saying that I think if he gets another season-ending injury, the team is going to say, you know what, it's best to just cut ties. It's not about me agreeing with the decision or disagreeing with it. I just sat here and said I think that Jimmy's about to have a career year. But to Anthony's point, I think that if he gets injured again and it's a season-ending injury, they're going to be like, look, this is 3 out of 4 years. This guy is going to get injured all the time, and it's too important of a position to be invested in. You can't look across the NFL and find another quarterback that has gotten injured 3 out of 4 times that ended his season and was still holding on to a starting position. You can't find that. It doesn't happen. That one position is far too important for you to have someone who people start saying is injury prone. You cannot, you won't get it. You get career backups like that. You can get Tyrod Taylor's in there, but I don't know if he's had any season-ending injuries like that, but he's often injured. Mike Vick was another guy who was often injured, and teams kept taking gambles on him, but how many of those injuries were season-ending? This will be, if if what Anthony is proposing, his hypothetical situation, it'll be his third one in 4 years. No one's gonna pay you 137 million to do that. It's not gonna happen.
What was his first injury?
It was with New England. I don't know what the
It
injury
wasn't
was.
a season-ending injury.
He was done for the season. It could be because Brady came back. I don't know, but he didn't play anymore.
He
Yeah,
had
it
a
was because
massive,
Brady
he had a
came back.
massive concussion in New England. He had a pretty bad concussion. He might have had 2.
I thought it was a leg injury also.
I know he got concussed, and that's why Brissett came in. And then
Yeah, but he
Garoppolo
wasn't out
basically
for the
did.
season. This was his first season-ending injury.
Look it up. You got him. You had the site that had all the injuries over there. But to Anthony's point, though, it's not about like I said, I don't think he's going to get injured. I said I think he's going to finish the year. I think that he's the reason why Kittle's numbers go down, but for good reasons, because he's going to spread the ball around to everybody. I'm looking for Jimmy Garoppolo, not even rebound, just be more of who we thought he was going to be. I think I'm going to start the whole prediction thing that we did last time with Kittle. Let's have some fun with this so we can move on to the last 2 quarterbacks and wrap this thing up because we're approaching that 2-hour mark quickly. So with Jimmy Garoppolo, let's do some predictions here, and I will actually kick it off so you guys can't steal my ideas this time. All right. My prediction is going to be that Jimmy Garoppolo throws 36 touchdowns this season. Yep. That's all I'm going to give you guys. 36 touchdowns. Anthony, while Nick is looking up the injury history, let me get your prediction.
I'm sorry. I have to do this just because I'm in such a negative mood. But,
oh, shit. Wait, never mind. We don't want to hear it.
No, hold on, I got to say no. But because Nick will finish with a positive thought. Nick will finish positively. Garoppolo will have more interceptions than touchdowns.
Oh, my God. After I say he's going to have 36?
That's why I wanted Nick to finish. Dude, I'm sorry. I want Garoppolo to have such a good season, and I'm sure he will. And I'm just being a sorry ass, but there's just that part of me that's so concerned because we've seen the bad decisions that Garoppolo has made, and I'm not saying the good ones are lucky. Granted, he's a good quarterback with good talent, but sometimes you just go on those stretches where the bad far exceeds the good. And this is, I'm hoping, where I'm going to come wrong and say Shanahan is going to save Garoppolo more than we think. But if it's some of those games where Shanahan's scheming just isn't working the way it is, I can see Garoppolo just finishing with more picks.
Nah, not going to happen.
saying-
Bro. I respect it. I respect it. But if he
No.
gets back to the form that he's supposed to be with the quick hits, first of all, the quick throws is really hard to throw an interception with. The interceptions are caused when you hold on to the ball too long or when you're, you know what I mean? You're getting pushed off your mark and things like that. If he gets back into the rhythm of this offense, the way he did before, you know, and even better, hopefully, with the better footwork, he's not, it's going to be really hard for him to throw interceptions in the first place. He might have, you know, significantly more incompletions, but interceptions are going to be really hard. Nick was talking about how he was forcing the ball to guys. You only have to force the ball to guys if you can't find open receivers. Everyone that I talked about before, Bourne, Matthews, Taylor, Pettis, these guys get open as soon as they put their foot in the ground to make their move. If Jimmy is delivering in stride the way that he was before, there's no way he has it. I hear you, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see, but I hope you're wrong. God, man, I hope
I'm wrong too. But like I said, if Garoppolo is forcing balls and he's only reading one side of the field when he missed a lot of open guys on the other side of the field, that's just what's creating concern with me. Is I get we haven't seen the complete package, but with these concerns, we got to ask ourselves, is he the complete package?
All right, Nick.
I'm not saying he is or isn't.
Give me some positive news, man.
Most of Garoppolo's interceptions came off of wide receivers' hands.
I can't agree with that. I don't know if it's true. I just don't remember.
Yeah, they literally were coming off of people's hands. Yes, there was 2 or 3 bad ones where he overthrew somebody or just threw into bad coverage. But other than that, everybody physically touched the football and people intercepted it. So, no, he's not going to throw more interceptions than he does touchdowns, Ali. I got to throw that name out there. His two injuries were a torn ligament in his shoulder and his ACL. That was his two injuries in his entire career of football.
Oh, so it was season ending then.
It didn't end him. He was out for like 7 weeks or something with it. He's only had one season-ending injury.
He's only had 2 opportunities. He's still batting 50%, bro. It's not a good number.
All right. Well, whatever. I'm not going to argue that fact that I'm not going to cut a guy because he gets injured on a fluke injury.
So if he comes out again and he has another season-ending injury, you're not cutting him? Because you're the main one that praises Parag for these, we have an out. You live by that.
Yeah, but there's a difference between playing well and getting a fluke injury.
If he plays
the way he played not well and getting a fluke injury. So if that were the case in the NFL look at you.
No. Let's not do a hypothetical. Look at last year. If what happened last year and his play, how you said he's only looking at one side of the field and Look at him last year. If that same Jimmy comes back and then he has an injury that's season ending early on, you're bringing him back again?
Well, I just said where I'm not. You didn't say play. You said if he comes out and gets injured again, you're cutting him.
Right, but then you said I can't do that. You said I can't do that to a person who's playing well. So I'm saying a person who's playing like
I'm saying I'm basing it off of. I said yous aren't basing it off of playing well. You're basing it off a fluke injury. I can't tell you that somebody's going to get cut because of a fluke injury, a knee, a broken bone. It's football. I'm not cutting somebody because of that. It depends on how he's playing. If he's playing before that injury, if he's playing well and he gets a fluke injury, there's no way you're cutting him.
If he's playing the way he played last year and he gets that injury early on, are you cutting him?
If he gets injured right at week 3 or 4, no, I'm not cutting him.
Okay.
Because of an injury.
I just want to say real quick, if Mullens can be just as effective as Garoppolo in this system, and we got a larger package with Mullens than we did with Garoppolo, Garoppolo's gone. If Mullens can do almost the same things that Garoppolo can, why keep him?
But he didn't though. He didn't. Mullens was effective.
Look, I am the biggest Mullens lover and supporter, and he is nowhere near compared to Jimmy Garoppolo. Nowhere. They shouldn't even be mentioned in the same name other than running the same offense. Nick Mullens is a career backup guy. His system, he looked good because Kyle Shanahan made him look good. If he goes somewhere else, he's not going to look good.
Wait, hold on now. Hold up now. Well, you know what? We'll get to him. Go ahead. Give me your thoughts give me your prediction on Jimmy. Let's get to Nick Mullens after this because I want to defend something you just said there. So let's go. Let's get your prediction for Jimmy. Obviously, we all think he's going to make the 53, so we don't want to waste time with that. I say 36 touchdowns. Anthony is saying more interceptions than touchdowns, so 37 picks. And your prediction is going to be what?
I'm going to go with 30 touchdowns and 14 interceptions.
I like that ratio. That's better than 2-1. I like that a lot. Let's go. Get Anthony's little get up out of here. Get it up out of here, man. And we're going to have over 3,800 yards passing. Let's go. All right, so we wasted a lot of time on Jimmy Garoppolo. The Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle was supposed to be the easy ones that we flew through. We spent the most time on those two. All right, so I'm going to go to who I think is going to be our backup quarterback this year. All right, and I'm going to go with CJ Beathard as the next guy. All right, now I already said that I think that CJ Beathard is going to be the backup. So you guys look, Anthony's almost about to drop out already. There he is. The reason I say that is because of invested picks in this guy. CJ Beathard is not just a third-round pick. They traded up to acquire him. He is 2 picks in 1, and I don't think the team is ready to give up on him. He has 0 trade value. So, I mean, the team is probably more likely to trade Nick Mullens than they are to make Nick Mullens the backup, in my personal opinion. So let's talk about CJ Beathard. He came in last year. He played in 6 or 7 games. He didn't do anything phenomenal. You know, he's got this crazy record of like 1 win and like what is it, like 12 losses or something?
1-11.
Oof. Oh my God. All right, guys, give me your thoughts.
And that's your backup, bro.
Defend him. Defend him. Let me charge you with defending him. What's up?
What is there not to defend? The only thing that excuse me, the only thing that's hurting Nick Mullens this year is it's his final year on his contract. And CJ Beathard was drafted in the 3rd round. So that's the only thing helping CJ Beathard right now. This whole competition shouldn't even be a competition. And it, like you guys were saying before, you can't get rid of, you know, such and such player because he was drafted at such and such place. Well, we got rid of Joe Williams, where we drafted in what, the 3rd round or 4th round? Was he 4th?
No, I'm pretty sure he was 4th.
It was the 3rd or 4th. It was one of those. 3 or 4, we got rid of him. Nick Mullens proved that he can come here and run this offense. So if something does happen to Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Mullens can step in.
So we talk about Beathard.
Because I don't think Beathard. I'm not defending Beathard. I'm defending Mullens.
Wait, no. All right, don't defend him. But we're on Beathard right now. We'll get to Mullens later.
But there's nothing else to say about Beathard. He's garbage. Like, what am I going to defend? There's nothing to defend.
To make CJ Beathard the next option after.
What was that?
Mullens. I said that's pretty disrespectful to make CJ Beathard the next talking point after Mullens.
Yeah, no, I mean it's gonna happen. I want to go with Beathard first because I think we all see a little bit more potential in Mullens than we do Beathard. But like I said, all right, let me ask you guys this: do you guys honestly think that the team is going to delegate or relegate him to the 3rd quarterback, CJ Beathard? He's not practice squad eligible. He started too many games already, so he's either going to make this roster as a 3rd string quarterback, or the backup, or he's going to be cut.
Yes. I'm gonna say yes. And this goes back. This goes back to the whole Garoppolo injury thing. Because if he gets hurt again, I don't see Shanahan or any of the coaching staff wanting to go out and find a backup for Mullens. And like you said, I think they invested too much in Beathard just to let him go. That's the thing. And it's kind of painstaking for me to say that we hold 3 quarterbacks because I don't like doing it. But again, the team put too much into Beathard just to let him go. And if Garoppolo gets hurt and they do like Mullens as the starter, they're going to have to keep Beathard. That's the thing.
That's where I should have started, man. Do you think we keep three quarterbacks on the active roster? You said yes. Okay, Nick, do you think we keep 3 quarterbacks or we only do 2?
I think it really depends. I think it really depends on, especially with running backs now. It really depends.
Oh, come on. We did the debate show. You got us keeping all those running backs already. So you have your mind made up on the running backs already.
Yeah, because I'm cutting CJ Beathard, dude. I'm taking the loss.
Okay.
I'm moving on. Like, I don't even want him on the squad. And he hasn't proven anything to be on this squad. So we're all talking about a quarterback getting a fluke injury and cutting him after you pay him $137.5 million, but we can't cut a quarterback who can't throw the fucking football or run this offense.
If we were to cut Jimmy, he wouldn't make that 137. But I get what you're saying.
Right, but we're sitting here debating keeping the shittier quarterback because of where his draft status was. But we're talking nonsense of cutting a guy because he gets a fluke injury. I just don't get it. I don't understand that whole concept right there.
I can explain it to you if you want.
Yeah, I would like to hear.
You know how Quentin Patton was like my guy. Like that was the guy I pulled for, right? Or forget Quentin Patton. I can give you someone even worse that I pulled for a lot. The cornerback from Jersey. He was from Pennington. Johnson.
Oh, not Tremaine. Dante.
Dante Johnson. You know how hard I pulled and I fought for him, right? He was bad though, bro. Dante Johnson to me is what CJ Beathard is to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. They wanted him. They wanted him to work so bad. So they're not going to be as willing to just give up on him. They took, and the story has already come out. This isn't some Mike exclusive or something that NB Niners is making up, okay? The story is already out. They took Jimmy Garoppolo with that second-round flyer, and they said, we'll get him in here. We'll let him play some games at the end of the year, and if he's not good, we can still get Kirk Cousins in the offseason. That was their plan. If Jimmy didn't work, oh, well, we lost the second-round pick. At least we found out whether or not he was going to be our quarterback. They took a flyer. They weren't attached to him the way that they were attached to CJ Beathard. A lot of people say CJ Beathard was going to go undrafted. And instead of just waiting and taking your time and picking him, they decided to trade up. They invested more in him than they did into Jimmy Garoppolo.
John Lynch decided to move up and take him, not Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan said he would be there later.
And why did John Lynch do that?
Because he wanted to help his coach, knowing that Kyle Shanahan wanted him. So he moved up and made his draft value higher than what it was. And now we just, like I just said, we got rid of Joe Williams, who we drafted. There's no reason that we shouldn't cut CJ Beathard because he's not performing.
Here's the difference. You just said yourself that Kyle Shanahan believed that CJ Beathard would be available later. John Lynch said, I really, on the record, by the way, it's not some Peter King rumor thing that he overheard in the war room. This is on the record. John Lynch said that he knew how much Kyle Shanahan wanted him. And John Lynch did it for his own peace of mind, knowing that he got his head coach the exact quarterback he wanted. So what does Kyle Shanahan have to say to you to make you think that, you know what, I have to get this guy this draft? I'm not asking you to tell me what it is, but Kyle Shanahan put something in Lynch's head that said, this is the guy we have to walk away from this draft with. It's him. It's not someone like him. It is him. This is the guy that I want in my system. That was Kyle Shanahan's wish. I'm just saying that I think they have an emotional attachment to CJ Beathard. And my little theory is supported by every single presser that they did after they named Nick Mullens the starter, because people were like, oh, well, okay, is Beathard going to be starting again? And whatever. And then 3 weeks later, when Mullens was still the starter and winning a game, it was, oh, no, Beathard is still whatever. He defended Beathard so many times when no one even mentioned his name. There's an emotional attachment to him. I pointed out to you guys during the season every time he did it. I would make it a point to share that news with you guys when he was defending CJ Beathard and it wasn't even called for. I pointed out to you guys, there's an emotional attachment. They're not just going to be like, all right, well, he's Joe Williams, we can walk away. It's not that easy for them.
If Kyle Shanahan would have never sat CJ Beathard for as long as he did, I would still agree with you, because I agreed back then there was emotional. But the minute that he took CJ Beathard out and started Nick Mullens, that emotional went away from me. It went completely away, because to sit him not once, not twice, but 3 times, Brian Hoyer, Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Mullens.
What? That can't be your order for that's not how they sat him.
He came in and played for Hoyer.
Yeah, because Hoyer got benched. Hoyer had more knowledge of the playbook. So
Hoyer got benched. Right. He brought in CJ Beathard. CJ Beathard, we then brought in Jimmy Garoppolo. CJ Beathard took the bench.
Wait, whoa. It's not that simple. Why did Beathard get benched? He got injured.
Yeah, but then he came back.
No. He came back as a backup, and they said that we hope we don't have to play him, but he'll be active on game day.
Exactly. So why is a team, one, still making moves for a quarterback? You trade a second-round pick when your guy could have played the rest of the season after an injury.
He could. Go ahead.
He couldn't have played again in 2017?
No. He wasn't ready to play again. He wasn't ready to play again, bro. You have to think back to when he lost his job. He was the starter until he got injured, and then Jimmy came back, and Jimmy got put in,
and then he lost his job,
and he never got it back. He was never healthy enough to play more. They put him in there because you got to remember that what's his name was gone. Hoyer was gone.
I know Hoyer was gone.
So it's not that he was healthy enough to come back and they didn't put him in there. They put him in there as the backup, but they said hopefully we don't have to play him. Hopefully Jimmy can finish the game because we don't want to have to see what happens. They went on the mic and said that. It's not like he was healthy enough to come back and get his job back, and they were like, "Oh no, we're going to stick with Jimmy." Same thing with this year.
But your guys were arguing before. Oh, we were saying, hope Jimmy Garoppolo starts this week. Hope Jimmy Garoppolo starts this week. Hope Jimmy Garoppolo starts this week. Oh, CJ Beathard got hurt. Jimmy Garoppolo time. Now he came in and won, and it was like Jimmy Garoppolo better be starting next week. Or lost that game against Seattle, but he scored a touchdown on the final seconds, and everybody's like, we better see CJ Beathard or Jimmy Garoppolo next week because Kyle Shanahan has too much trust in CJ Beathard. We better see Jimmy Garoppolo. And then from there, the Jimmy Garoppolo tenure started. So once Jimmy Garoppolo went down, we go through what? 4, 5, 6, 7, week 7 or 8. When did Mullens start?
Mullens played. What was it?
9. He played in week 8 because he played the Raiders, right?
No, that was week 10, I think. Because he only played like 6 games.
All right, so week 10. So Beathard played 3 games or 7 games, I'm sorry, in that stretch. And then he got another injury, which wasn't completely ending his season because he was still active on the roster.
Oh shit, it was 8 games. You're right. You were right.
He came in, he only played CJ Beathard only played 5 games, I think.
Yeah, but Jimmy had 3, CJ had 5,
and then Paul had 8. So CJ Beathard could have came back. Even though the team was losing, Nick Mullens was still producing with this team, other than the Raiders game. Nick Mullens was playing better than CJ Beathard was. He could have easily taken Mullens back out and put CJ Beathard back in.
Nick Mullens was unbenchable. He won 2 Super Bowls that year. He beat the Raiders in the final Battle of the Bay. And he beat the Seahawks.
But what I'm saying is
done in 3 years.
Those games were split. They weren't like back-to-back games. So he went from here, beating the Raiders, a shit team of the Raiders, losing, winning. And the Seattle game that he won was the last game that we played them. So it was like week 16. So he wasn't going to – he had from 10 to 16 to sit this guy, and he never took him out because he was playing better than CJ Beathard. So the emotionalness is gone. They're going to go into camp, they're going to compete, and the best quarterback's going to win. If Nick Mullens wins, look for him to get an extension as the backup quarterback. CJ Beathard, you can't place on a practice squad, so you're going to have to either trade him or cut him or cut your ties. We cut Joe Williams, so I wouldn't be surprised to see if they just cut him. Just plain out cut him.
So your thoughts on CJ Beathard?
Dump him. Simple. Dump him like a bad girlfriend, bro.
You don't think he's going to be the backup this year?
No, I do not.
Anthony, you think he's going to be the backup this year?
I do.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do.
Y'all are Beathard booties, man.
I don't like him, Nick. I don't think he's good. I think the team is too invested, bro.
Have some faith in your coach and think that he's going to do what's best for the team.
They haven't been doing what was best.
So then why did CJ Beathard not get replaced between week 10 and week 16 when he was healthy enough to come back? Why did Nick Mullens not get replaced with CJ Beathard? Answer me that. One of you.
Because he won his first start. You're not going to bench him after that.
So did Nick or CJ Beathard.
No, he didn't.
He won against the Giants.
That wasn't his first start, bro. What are you talking about?
Okay, so then he loses 3 in a row, and you still don't bring CJ Beathard back in.
But he was moving the ball. The defense didn't show up.
Better.
He was more productive than CJ Beathard ever was.
Exactly. So there's no. Oh, I'm not going to put CJ Beathard back in. You're answering exactly what I just asked you.
You asked me why Beathard didn't get his job back.
Because Nick Mullens was playing better. So there's no emotional attachment to
that doesn't mean the team doesn't still think that Beathard has potential, that they still want to try to see if they can get more out of him. I'm not saying that I agree with them, bro. I don't like Beathard. I told you he has no trade market. They should just cut him and let him go.
Right.
I
understand that's the way you feel, but I want a true answer as to why Mullens wasn't sat when Beathard was healthy enough to come back in. If you're saying there's an emotional attachment,
at
that's
that
all I'm
point,
asking.
you got to realize that when you're at a question mark with your quarterbacks, you got to ride the hot hand, and Mullens was the hot hand.
He was 1-5, bro. How's he the hot hand?
Against
Mullens
the
was
Raiders?
Mullens was never 1-5.
Against the Raiders?
Bro, he only won 3 games. What are you talking about?
So okay, and he won his first start. You're telling me that he lost the next 5? You're wrong.
He didn't win again until what? Who did he beat? 16.
Denver. Beat Denver. Beat
Denver
Seattle.
and Seattle.
Beat
Yeah.
Oakland.
Yeah.
And
So
those
when
games-
did we play Denver?
Denver and the Raiders game weren't 5 weeks apart.
No, there were like 4.
So he wasn't 1-5.
Okay, so he's 1-4.
That's not 1-5.
Okay, it's still bad. 1-4.
When you
I
put
just
out
don't understand how you guys think that there's still that emotional attachment. That's where I just don't understand. And you guys can be completely right. I'm not saying that it's – I know you don't want CJ Beathard on this team, but I just don't see why Mullens wasn't replaced when he was 1-3, 1-4, whatever he was. He won 1 game and then he lost a bunch. And he could have easily took his hand and went back to CJ Beathard and said, CJ's going to start this week. Nope. Nick Mullens is going to start. Nope. Nick Mullens is going to start. Nick Mullens is a quarterback for the rest of the year. When CJ Beathard was completely healthy. And you can't say ride the hot hand because he only won 3 games in an 8-game span. That's not a hot hand.
It's not a hot hand. It's not a hot hand. How many games has Beathard won?
1.
A lot hotter than your a lot hotter, right? Compared to 1.
But I'm saying in that stretch he was not hot.
Beathard won
It wasn't
1
like he
game
came out and
in
won
last
2 games,
year.
lost 1. 2 games, lost 1. That's a hot hand. Not 1-4 is not a hot hand. And then winning 1 game and then losing 2 more and then winning 1 more. That's not a hot hand.
Are you listening to yourself? Beathard at that point was like 1-8, dude. You're telling me that somebody 1-4 isn't a hotter hand than 1-8?
He could. All I'm saying is he could have easily. You guys are saying he rode the hot hand. He was 1-4.
Okay, I'm not. We're talking
bottom
circles.
line. Okay. Bottom line. Shanahan covets Beathard way too much to cut him. The team invested way too much into cut him. Overall, in this whole argument, I still think Beathard is going to be the backup just because of the attachment, and I think there is an attachment. There always has been, and it's going to be there until they really decide to cut him. But the bottom line is the Niners are going to carry 3 quarterbacks, and Beathard will be on the roster. As much as people hate it, he will be.
I just disagree with you on they have too much invested in them because they don't really have much invested in them other than a draft pick.
2 draft picks.
Why?
Because they traded up to get him.
Yeah, but they're not going to sit there and say, "Oh, well, we traded up to get him." And that's 1 draft pick, and that's another draft pick. They have
You don't
1
think that
overall
factors
draft
into a player's value?
What?
You don't think that trading up for somebody factors into their value?
Do you think if they go to trade CJ Beathard, they're going to say, "Oh, well, we have 2 draft picks on this guy. This is what we got to get back"?
No, but that's why he's still here. If they didn't trade up to get CJ Beathard, I think he would have been cut already. He's never even looked good in preseason. There's nothing good about CJ Beathard. We've never seen anything good from this dude.
Exactly, as why I'm saying he should just be cut.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm talking about the team, though. The team sees him differently. Look, why do you think Joshua Garnett is still here? Answer that for me. Anthony and I both just talked about Jimmy Garoppolo getting injured and we should let him go, right? Why is Joshua Garnett still here? Because the 49ers traded up to get him back in the first round. They had too much invested in him to just say, hey, go. That shit works. You've heard from people in our own WhatsApp group. We've heard from a player who played for the Jets that said this guy was a first-round pick and he got beat in practice against this guy, but he still got the reps and he was still the starter.
So are we just
You see it with
basing
your
this
own
off?
eyes.
So are we just basing this off of play?
It's never been about play. Are you listening?
All right. Oh my God, never mind. You're trying. Never mind. I'm done with the conversation. Go ahead.
I'm just telling you, it's not
I'm
about play
really
performance.
listening to you, but you're not listening to what the fuck I'm saying. So
I'm hearing you, bro, and I'm telling you that they've
you're
invested.
telling me I'm
Just
wrong.
let them go. I don't get what you don't understand.
I don't get what you understand. It's my opinion versus your opinion.
No, we have the same opinion. The difference is that I'm telling you why they haven't cut him yet.
Okay, so but you're saying we haven't cut him because we traded up to get him. Well, we released Reuben Foster, who we traded up to get in a first round.
Reuben Foster was beating bitches. There's a difference.
I just asked you, are we just basing this off play? You said yes.
Okay. Did Reuben Foster have as good? Let me ask you this then. Was Reuben Foster's second year as good as his first year?
No.
Hell no, right? Okay. Was CJ Beathard's first year as good as his second? Was his second year as good as his first year?
No.
Right. But CJ Beathard is still here. You want to know why? Because he wasn't beating bitches. There's a difference. That's why he's still here. If CJ Beathard smacks someone, he's gone, bro. That's all I'm telling you. I don't think that he should be here. None of us do on this panel right now. Every person watching this video thinks that he should be gone. I'm telling you the reason he's still here is because the 49ers have it in their head that they invested too much in him to just give up in a freaking 10-game sample or 16.
Exactly. I understand what you're saying, but then when I tell you my opinion, you're telling me I'm not listening to you. I don't give a shit what you're saying because you're saying what the team is doing. My opinion is totally different.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say this. I think all of us are kind of missing out on is I get that Beathard is bad. We all get that Beathard is bad.
Oh, he froze.
I should be on the right. I'd much rather put that spot. Okay, I'm here. I want Beathard off the team. We all want Beathard off the team. That roster spot should go to something much more important. But you got to look at it like this. Joe Williams was cut because he was ineffective as a running back. Reuben Foster was cut because he was beating women. He's a linebacker. The quarterback position is valued so much higher than any other position on the team. Any other position. And whether it was Shanahan's quarterback or whether it was Lynch's quarterback, one of them has some sort of attachment to them on top of being the quarterback, which is the most important position on the team. You're not just going to let that go, even if he's ineffective.
That's not true, though, because you let go of a running back because he wasn't performing.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to Nick Mullens. We wasted way too much time on this. We're talking in circles. It's fine. All right. He shouldn't be here. We all agree to that. Let's move on. Let's talk about Nick Mullens and going forward. What do you guys think about Nick Mullens? Like, do you think that Nick Mullens is going to be the guy going in here? And do you think he has a chance at pushing Jimmy Garoppolo for his job?
Yes.
Tell me why.
That's all I'm going to say. He was effective in Shanahan's system. And I get that Shanahan's system works with any quarterback. But if Mullens can be as effective in the sense that Garoppolo can be, and I get that Mullens isn't the talent that Garoppolo is, but Mullens can be effective even if the talent isn't there, there's no reason to say that Mullens isn't going to at least push Garoppolo for the spot.
All right, so Mullens comes in here. He earns the backup spot, which I think we all agree he should be the backup. There's no disagreement on that, right? Should the 49ers then keep 3 quarterbacks? And I know that you've already said yes because you feel like if Jimmy gets hurt again, we don't want to go looking for another quarterback, right? But I don't remember the eligibility rules. What if Nick Mullens is eligible for practice squad and CJ Beathard isn't? Would you chance cutting him and hoping that you can get Mullens back on the practice squad?
No. I mean, it's the moment Nick Mullens looked good on the field. The moment Nick Mullens looked good on the field was a moment that his spot, if he were to be practice squadded, would be unsafe. I think that's where people were coming up with the whole, Let's trade Mullens. Let's trade Mullens. He has some kind of value. He has some kind of value. Let's trade him. Because people know that if he's put on the practice squad, he's unsafe, regardless of Shanahan's scheme making him look good or not. We've seen it with so many teams, like the Bengals or the Dolphins or any team that just goes to a shitty quarterback. They will take anything off the streets. They will take anything that looks appealing. And Nick Mullens proved it. Whether it was Shanahan's system or not, Mullens proved it. With that being said, his practice squad value increases dramatically. He is without a doubt one of the best players on the practice squad for all 32 teams. And I'm not saying I think he is, but that's just how the league would see it, especially leagues that or teams that need a quarterback. With that being said, if the team, I'm done with Beathard, but if the team decides to roll with Beathard and they don't want to keep Mullens, they're going to do everything they can to trade him. That's the thing.
I agree. You got to get something for him. You can't just let him walk. I mean, if the rumors are true, we don't know. But in this Odell Beckham potential trade that they were talking about, Nick Mullens was included in that, and the 49ers didn't want to let go of that number 2 spot or Nick Mullens. Now, that goes against everything that I was saying, that maybe they're ready to make Nick Mullens the backup. So, Nick, I want to ask you this question, right? I didn't ask Anthony. He went away, so I'm going to ask you. How many games, if any, do you think Nick Mullens starts this coming season?
I mean, I don't think he starts any.
That means we got a healthy Jimmy all the way. That's what I want to hear. That's good.
But this is my point was Anthony was saying that this is where the Niners have if the Niners don't trade or cut CJ Beathard, then John Lynch needs to be or Kyle Shanahan needs to be fired. And I'm going to say it right now, because if you lose, you put Nick Mullens back on the practice squad, or you take up a roster spot to hold 3 quarterbacks, you're putting this team in danger. Because if something happens to Jimmy Garoppolo again, you're back to picking in the top 10 and having to get another quarterback to even start or be a backup quarterback, and you're starting your whole thing all over again. Nick Mullens got Rich Scangarello hired as a head coach in the NFL because of his way that he handled Nick Mullens and getting Nick Mullens ready to play in this system this year. We can sit here and argue that fact till we're blue in the face, but that is the reason Rich Scangarello, or however Scangarello, got hired as a head coach, because of his play. You even heard the Denver guy say, you saw what he did with Nick Mullens and those quarterbacks in San Francisco. He can run this team. And he went and got a head coach position. You as a front office and a head coach, if you allow a guy who played so well for you as a backup quarterback to Jimmy Garoppolo go to the practice squad where somebody's gonna take him, pay him more to get him off your team, you're putting your team at risk, you're losing a great backup quarterback, and you're taking a chance on your future, as in if something happens to Jimmy Garoppolo. CJ Beathard has no value whatsoever. No value. Okay, so he's an offensive coordinator, yes. But he got a offensive coordinating position because of the fact of how he handled the quarterbacks. So, sorry, I didn't mean to say head coach. So then you can say CJ Beathard has no value. Who has more value right now on this team? And if our head coach can't make a decision like that because he's stuck with a 3rd-round draft pick, then he doesn't deserve to be a coach for the San Francisco 49ers, because he's not making a decision based off of what is good for this team. He's making a decision off of his heart, which no coach in the NFL is going to win off of his heart. You can go back to the Seifert days. You can go back to the Walsh days. Seifert had to make a huge decision on Steve Young or Joe Montana. Joe Montana was the fan favorite. What happened? Steve Young started and took over this team and went to Kansas City. So if you're not making the decision for the team and the future, then you don't deserve to be a head coach. You should be fired right at the spot, because Nick Mullens has more value than CJ Beathard does on this team as a backup quarterback to Jimmy Garoppolo. And if something does happen to Jimmy Garoppolo and he gets injured and we cut him so we don't have to pay him, Nick Mullens is more than capable of running this team until we get somebody else in here. And if Nick Mullens would have went in week 3 when CJ Beathard went down, we probably could have won 3 or 4 more games. Easily. We could have been at 8-18. In my personal opinion. But do I think Nick Mullens is riding up a Jimmy Garoppolo's tail, as in taking a starting spot? No. But is he a decent backup? Yes. Is he better than a Mark Sanchez? Is he better than a Ryan Fitzpatrick? Is he better than a Joe Flacco? I would even put him as a better backup than Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is going to start in Denver, but with experience, I think that is the type of quarterback we're looking at. Maybe a Joe Flacco in his good years, or I can't even think of any other backup quarterbacks, but he holds more value to this team right now than CJ Beathard does. And if you can't make that decision, you deserve to be fired.
I'm not firing Kyle Shanahan because he wants to keep 3 quarterbacks instead of 2. That's just not happening. I don't know how you come to that conclusion. I think that I agree with you as far as who's the better quarterback, who has better trade value, and why does he have better trade value? Because he's seen better. When the Giants were on the phone about OBJ, they didn't ask about CJ Beathard. They asked about Nick Mullens for a reason. We all see that. We all agree with that. But I'm not firing a guy because he still wants to see if a guy has it one more year. I'll use Solomon Thomas as an example, right? You know me. I have been over Solomon Thomas, not just last season, even the season before. I've been done with Solomon Thomas. But why is he still here? When we did the defensive lineman breakdown, I said Solomon Thomas is going to be here because of what? His salary and where he was drafted. Not because he's earned it. It's not about his merit. It's about where he was picked up. That's all it is. Solomon Thomas ain't going anywhere. So those kind of things do weigh in. And I'm not going to fire a head coach because of that. I'm not getting rid of a head coach that I think is one of the best offensive minds in the entire NFL because he wants to chance a quarterback as being his 3rd guy. I'm not letting him go because of that. I do love Nick Mullens, though. I do think Nick Mullens is going to come in and get a couple of snaps. I'm hoping he doesn't get any games, though. So, Anthony, you disappeared. I asked Nick, how many games, if any, do you think Nick Mullens starts this year?
I'm gonna say none because I don't want to throw any more hypotheticals. But if I want to be realistic and I want to be an optimistic fan, I will say like 1 or 2 just because. I'll say 1 or 2 just because at the end of the season the Niners are already.
Oh, nice spin. Nice spin. Okay, I like that. I like that a lot, man. We already got the playoff spot locked up. No need for Jimmy to go out there. Okay. I'm going to say this. I think that Nick Mullens makes an appearance in 2 or 3 games. I'm not going to say that he starts any, though. I'm not sure if he starts any at all. I think my answer would be 0, but he might make a couple appearances, some knees to end some games. You know what I mean? The 49ers are up 42-14 late in the 4th quarter, something like that. You know what I mean? Those are the kind of things I'm hoping for. If we see Nick Mullens at all, it'll be because of that. We all really, really like Nick Mullens, but let's make no mistake about it. He doesn't have the biggest arm here. He's not the fastest runner here at the position. He's probably the hardest studier. I will give him that. I think he studies harder than anybody else on this roster at that position. And we just have to hope that, you know, he can stick around, and if called upon, he's ready to go. And I probably have more faith in him being ready to go than anybody else coming off the bench at that position. So, yeah.
Let me just rephrase, because people are like saying that if we fire Kyle Shanahan, then where do we go? The only way I'm saying we fire Kyle Shanahan is if he keeps CJ Beathard, so only 2 quarterbacks on the roster, and we let Nick Mullens slip away on the practice squad. That is not a good head coaching decision. If he keeps 3 on the roster, fine. I don't know where he's going to take from because we have already have a running back problem, as in to where you're going to have to cut if you're keeping 4 on the roster or keeping 1 inactive or whatever. I mean, you can say active, but I'm saying on the 53-man roster, it's still taking up a roster spot. So you're adding an extra quarterback and an extra running back on the roster spot, no matter who's active game day. Because, yes, you only keep 46 active. Yeah. and 53 on the roster. So you're going to deactivate a quarterback all weeks and then deactivate a running back. If you keep 3, fine. I still think that's the bad decision. I still think you try to get something for CJ Beathard. If not, I still think you just cut your ties like we did with Joe Williams with a high pick. We did with you can even see it happening right now with Akello. Like, you're going out and you're getting competition. And I know that Akello has a long ways to go. Solomon Thomas is the same way. Eric Armstead is the same way. Jimmy Ward is the same way. Like, I just don't. If you mess this up, doing anything but keeping 3 or getting rid of CJ Beathard, doing anything other than keeping 3 or not getting rid of CJ Beathard is the wrong thing to do. Like, you're either keeping 3 and letting them compete of who's going to start if something happens to Garoppolo. Please, nothing happen to Garoppolo. But because I don't want to go through that again. But I'd rather have Nick Mullens backing up Jimmy Garoppolo than CJ Beathard anywhere on this team. So if you let him slip to the practice squad and somebody picks him up, that's a bad mistake on the head coach. Like, a crazy bad mistake.
It's going to be a really, really tough 53-man roster to make because of the depth at running back position and the depth on the defensive line. This is before we even drafted Nick Bosa. That defensive line is going to have so many bodies there. That secondary of all these young guys who are trying to fight for a spot with Verrett there also now. Like, this is going to be a really hard 53-man roster to put together. Not counting the guys that you had on practice squad that you saw come in and do things for you last year. That roster spot is going to be very valuable. That we're projecting CJ Beathard to be taking up. It's a very, very valuable spot. And so we're going to have to stop and look up the rules of practice squad eligibility. Maybe we get lucky and there's some kind of way that we can put Beathard on the practice squad and keep Nick Mullens. But go ahead, Anthony. I know you want to jump in one more time before we wrap this thing all the way up. What's up?
No, I was going to agree with you. This 53-man roster is going to be tight. And I've never seen in all the years I've ever watched the NFL, and I get it, I'm only a Niners fan, but I've never seen a 53-man roster that's very young, but the superstar talent isn't really there per se. But there's a lot of the key and depth pieces on both sides of the ball that we all really like. I've never in my life seen a team have to go through something like that where the vast majority of these guys can come in and at least play. So that I hope we can do something about Beathard, because I don't want him to be the number 2. I sadly think he's going to be the number 2, but I don't think we even should carry 3 quarterbacks, sadly, even though I don't like the injury history. But each roster spot that isn't to a guy that's guaranteed, so basically the 2 tackles, Pettis, a couple of the running backs, Garoppolo, and a couple of the DBs and LBs, and that's it. Like, literally only like 10, 15 guys are guaranteed a spot. Literally. That's how I see it. And the rest is up for grabs. So, yeah, I just wanted to reiterate. It's crazy.
It is. It's going to be battles all over the place. Nick and I did the running back debate the other night, and personally, I don't think we need all those running backs. It's cool. It's nice to have options. It's nice to have fresh legs. But do you need all of those bodies? That's the question that we were talking about. And we're talking luxury versus necessity. And those are 2 really different things. You don't need 4 running backs and a Kyle Juszczyk. You just don't need all of that. In an ideal world where your guys are healthy or rotating in, you can get away with 3 of them running backs. But, it's going to be what it's going to be. And this coaching staff has some very tough decisions ahead of them. That's why they get paid the big bucks and we don't, to see what they can do and put together the best team that they possibly can. So we're going to hope that these guys go out there and do what we hope that they do. CJ Beathard shouldn't be here. We all agree on that. Nick Mullens earned the backup spot. Jimmy Garoppolo should be the starter. The tight end position is still in flux behind George Kittle. No one is safe up back there. We would like to see a little bit more from Ross Dwelley. I had high hopes for Cole Hicatini. Cole Gattini was a great guy. We had him on the podcast. If you guys haven't seen that interview, make sure you go and scroll through our player interviews folder on our page. We had to interview George Kittle as well as Cole Gattini. Very good guys. I wish Cole Gattini had a shirt on, but, it is what it is. But he was here. What's done is done, and we're going to keep moving forward. That's really it. That's all we got for tonight's show. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Everybody out there. I was trying to find out what Tim is talking about, but I don't see he hasn't answered the question yet. So I don't know what he was talking about. He keeps saying I'm making stuff up, but he hasn't answered me. So I would have loved to respond to whatever it is that he's saying, but he's not saying anything. So it is what it is, guys. Nick, is there anything you want to add before we get up out of here?
Yo, stop all the CJ Beathard is better than Alex Smith talk in the chat, because that is completely horrible. Horrible. CJ is dookie. Complete dookie. Alex Smith was not the greatest quarterback because everybody had such high hopes, but he was a throw to the sticks guy. He didn't really start throwing the deep ball until Andy Reid, because we all thought he didn't have it. But there's no way that Alex Smith or CJ Beathard is better than Alex Smith. Just stop that right now. If you think that, I don't know what to tell you, because that's pretty bad. But that's pretty much all I got.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap this thing up. I don't know if we're going to make the 2-hour mark. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this one a podcast, but let's get up out of here, Nick. Prepare for glory.
Anticipate pain.
But always remain faithful.
We out of here.
We done.
Good job, guys.